couple of weeks ago, I reviewed the cheapest projector I could find on Amazon. And quick spoiler here, while I do have a video review, it was rubbish. It was terrible. But then again, it cost like 11 bucks. Today, I'm looking at very much the other end of the spectrum, a 115-inch TV that'll set you back just shy of 27,000 Australian dollars. You'd better get a whole lot of TV for that. But before I start, a couple of quick caveats. I'm actually doing this testing out at Samsung's HQ now. This is not a sponsored video. The only thing that they've basically bought me is a cup of coffee. I even traveled here by myself, but it is a limited kind of review because I've basically only got a couple of hours to test this TV out. Obviously, I don't control the settings it's on. Also, all I've got access to is what I can stream from it. So there's no free-to-air broadcast TV, and I'm a little bit limited in terms of what else I can plug into it. But with that out of the way, let's get into the full review. And of course, 115 inches is a lot of TV. It really is a big, big thing. How big? Well, I'm recording this just standing behind my camera at the moment, but how about I walk into frame to give you something of an idea of scale. Yeah, so this is me. And, I'm not a short man, but this is a lot of TV. This is a huge presence in your living room if you were to put one in your living room. Obviously, maybe not so suitable if you're living in like a little one-bedroom apartment. But for the Australian family home, yeah, maybe suitable if you've got the space. And of course, again, the budget. In terms of the actual TV interface, look, this is very much Samsung's standard play for these kinds of things. It all works much the same as any other Samsung TV. Samsung's promise here, by the way, is that it will offer up to 7 years of upgrades for this TV, which is, decent, should keep it nice and current, which again, you would want because I'll remind you, this is a $27,000 TV. I'll be honest here, it's outside my pay range. It's probably also outside the size I would personally want, but that's to do more with the configuration of my home. I can totally accept, yeah, there are plenty of people who have space for a 115-inch TV on their wall or on a stand. Now, speaking of the stand, if you're not going to wall mount it, it's going to sit on these rather lengthy legs. And I've got a tiny little criticism here, and this is kind of pedantic. I've got a couple of these about this TV, but I don't much like the look of the legs. There's this kind of weird, almost duck or bird feet thing to them that just doesn't personally appeal. Although maybe that's just the cabinet they're sitting on today. On a slightly longer, wider cabinet, maybe I'd just not pay attention to them after a while. Like I said, super, super pedantic point. But let's spin around to the back because there's a couple of other interesting details here and another thing I'm not so keen on. At the back, you find handles. Now, these are removable handles, and the idea is that when it's being installed, you use the handles to just make it easier to actually lift and move the TV. Because again, 115 inches of TV, that's a lot of TV. I should also point out, though, that actually, if you're buying a $27,000 TV, they do, at the time of recording this video at least, and at least here in Australia, throw in standard installation for you as part of that package. I get the feeling that people who can afford $27,000 for a TV probably can afford a couple of burly blokes to lift a TV into place for them. Although, here's a curious little fact. So here's me, right? Average kind of human male, not especially weighed down by hair, but otherwise of kind of average height and build for a man my age. And here's the 115-inch Samsung TV. And the funny thing is, we actually weigh the same. Now, that's kind of some extraordinary engineering there. I wouldn't necessarily want to lift all of my own body weight, but I'm not the heaviest man around. And for a TV this size, yeah, that's some kind of neat engineering. Speaking of the engineering, I just want to pop around the back again. We're back in pedantic peeve territory, although I don't feel this one's quite so pedantic as the last one. So Samsung has a really nice technology. It's one Connect box, which runs a single cable out from its TVs to an HDMI switching box and Ethernet and all the other plugs you might want. It's a really elegant solution. It works really, really well. And as you can guess from watching this, it's not on this TV at all. Everything is off to the rear right side of the TV, which means anything else you want to plug in there is going to have to accommodate being on or near that side, or you'll need longer cables to accommodate it. Obviously, depending on where your TV antenna, if you're into your free-to-air TV, comes in, that could also be problematic. Why they've done this, I don't know. I don't really get why their most premium TV at the time of recording does not, in fact, have its most premium connection solution in play. A TV this big, of course, is going to be a big black box on your wall when it's off, but you do get the Samsung Art Store if that's your kind of thing, and you can use it to then display artworks to your choosing. It's fine, it's there, I suppose. I would probably switch the TV off myself, and obviously you can use things like SmartThings, which I've not been able to test today, to automate that kind of process. It certainly displays well enough if that's what you like. Now, one of the things that Samsung wants to talk up about this particular TV is its anti-glare technology. We've seen this before on some other Samsung models, and obviously they've got a few overhead lights, and you can just see them here. But I like to have a little bit more of a challenge, so, well, I brought a torch with me. Let's go and see just how bright this can get. Now, that's not a great torch, not exactly the sun, but it should have an effect if the anti-glare coating works. Let's have a look. So obviously now we are a fair bit closer to the TV, quite a bit closer. And the anti-glare, yeah, works really well, in general conditions. But let's grab our handy dandy torch. Let's switch it on. You can see that that is on. Let's start pointing it at the screen. And yeah, look, obviously it is not completely killing the light from that screen, but you can see as I move it around, it actually diffuses a lot of it. This is genuinely impressive technology and stuff that I think does have a lot of relevance here in Australia. We get a lot of sun. I know in my own living room, the sun and even overhead lights can be a bit of an issue for my TV. So this is really, really nicely done, although I don't think too many people are actually going to point torches at TVs outside of weird YouTube TV reviewers. Of course, it's 2025, so your TV isn't just a TV, it's an AI engine. And this attempts to get around one of the issues you're going to have with a TV of this size, because at 115 inches, but only 4K, you're still talking about the same essential resolution as you are on a much smaller TV. Ergo, you'd think, well, the pixels are going to be bigger and blockier. And by and large, they are not. And this is thanks to an awful lot of AI customization, which you can, of course, also set yourself. You can tell it that you want particular things for how it detects a scene. So this is a general scene, I'd say, and we can tell it, here are all of my preferences as to what I think looks best for this particular scene, for things like contrast and then the color tone, and it will adjust that. And if it detects, it thinks, oh, this is a general scene, then that is what it will apply to that. Not that AI will cover everything or turn lower quantity garbage into gold in every situation. So I've got one of my own videos here, and by the way, I'm using an awful lot of my own videos in here because YouTube copyright strikes. I think it should be fair use, but I will digress into that for hours if I'm permitted. This is running, as you'll shortly see, at 2160p. But if I downgrade it to, say, 720p, it attempts to smooth it. And look, honestly, whilst this may not come through on the video so well, that is all right. It's not brilliant. You do sometimes see the little AI edges creep in just that little bit more, but it very much does depend on the content that you're watching. So, for example, looking at this video of the Clava Cairns up near Inverness, it presents quite well in 2160p, as it should. That's exactly how I filmed it, with a reasonable quantity of detail on the ground. But if we switch it to 720p, the AI attempts to smooth it out. This is pausing. I realize that's actually to do with the data connection I've got in here. That's not the TV's fault. Not too much I can do about that. Once that picks up 720p, it'll go, oh, well, I've got plenty of data. But looking at the ground, it's so much more AI. It's so much more smoothed over. It just looks almost like the whole video is AI generated. I promise you it isn't. But it does not look good. It's not a good looking effect. So it does depend on the kind of content that you're throwing at it. You also get Samsung TV Plus, a selection of IP-related channels. Now, those obviously are not quite as high broadcast quality as everything else you might watch, but hey, it's free stuff to watch. The smoothing can be a little aggressive here, I found, but again, hey, free. Time for another tiny pedantic point here. So this is the remote for the TV, and it does have some features that I like. So it's got the panel on the back, so it'll just charge via solar, or even the ambient light in the room should be enough to keep it charged. If that's not enough, you can use USB-C here at the base. Like that. Controls are simple enough, but this is a kind of cheap plasticky feeling remote. And again, this is a $27,000 TV. Maybe Samsung could have sprung for something slightly more premium, but I know this is Samsung style for pretty much all its TVs now. I doubt that's going to change. And of course, I'm me, so I had to see what it did with retro gaming. This is just the SNES Mini, of course. And yeah, look, it's not the best presentation, admittedly. This is where you see how well it smooths things. And yeah, I think I'd probably still go a regular CRT, but I'm a bit of a pedant on this stuff. I've certainly seen worse adaptive smoothing for this kind of content. But of course, you can actually do a little bit more modern gaming with this too. So honestly, the biggest problem I'm having with, for example, Xbox Cloud Gaming is the data connection in this particular room. This is not the TV's fault, it's doing what it can, and cloud gaming can be like this. TV itself should be able to handle 144 hertz refresh rate, so it should be quite capable and decent as a gaming platform, even if I'm showing that I'm such a woeful driver that I should never be allowed near the roads. I did drive here myself, I should point out. Live sports obviously is an important thing for an awful lot of Australian viewers, and look, 115-inch TV, great way to view certain live sports, depends what you're into, of course. But sometimes, again, the action, you do spot a little bit of silhouetting or a little bit of AI smoothing around players, that kind of thing. Still, there is one thing that this TV is really, really, really good for, and that is, without a doubt, movies. This is a great movie watching TV. Throw the lights off and pop on a big screen epic thing, and it really does have that proper cinema experience because it's just so big a screen. I mean, in the same room that this 115-inch screen is in, Samsung's got a 98-inch screen, and that's not a small TV by anyone's measure, but it really does look quite small. I'm sure the effect is quite deliberate. It's, marketing on my brain the same way that the big TVs always seem a little bit smaller when you look at them in a store, that kind of thing. But yeah, this is a great way to watch films. I could watch this film endlessly, and presumably I don't get a copyright strike by now, I probably will. So would I buy one? Should you buy one? Well, I did say at the outset that this was a limited review. I've only had a couple of hours to test this TV, and that's really just kind of starting stakes for this kind of stuff. To give it a full review, I would need it for a couple of weeks. I need to live with it. I need to work out how I'd handle all sorts of other formats and how it worked within my home and with sunlight bleaching down on it. But I've got to say, I can kind of see the market for this. Now, I'm not buying one. I don't have 27 grand. If you've got 27 grand, you want to send me so I can test it, look, there's a link below. Go nuts, but I won't be holding my breath on that score. For the market that can afford a $27,000 TV, who either want to invest in a long-term huge panel like this, yeah, I think there is some value here. There's definitely something to this that you don't necessarily get out of a projector screen, because obviously you can use this in all sorts of lighting conditions. There's a slightly different presentation technology, all of those kind of factors come into play. Then yeah, there's definitely something to this. For the rest of us though, for those of us who basically are never going to be able to afford a $27,000 TV, there is an upside to all of this. I've been reviewing and testing TVs for years and years and years now, and there've always been these really high-priced TVs that you can buy. But the reality is the prices drop and the screen sizes don't. So 115 right now, as I'm recording this, is a ludicrously big TV, really. Bigger than I could probably accommodate at home without some fairly serious redesign. But the reality is, within a couple of years, those prices will come down. The number of models out there will increase. There's like a handful, maybe 2 or 3 115 or similar sized TVs available in the Australian marketplace right now. But within a couple of years, yeah, you will see an awful lot more of these. That added competition will bring prices down, at which time, yeah, maybe we're not talking a 26 grand TV, maybe we're talking a couple of $1,000s. And at a certain point in time, I guess, they'll be selling this size in supermarkets. Although this is going to be a sod of a thing to get into your shopping trolley. Thanks for watching.